Hello there, Dave here, and before we get to the episode, two quick announcements. First of all, the main company behind today's game, Batman Arkham Origins, Warner Brothers, is one of the specially named companies in the ongoing SAG-AFTRA video game strike. And I want to show my support by acknowledging the strike and telling people to please do what you can to support the actors who are striking right now so that they can get better protections against unauthorized use of AI, using their voice, their likeness, and so on, and prevent further exploitation from some of these companies in the future. Please join me, show support, check down in the show notes for a link for more information about the strike. Second, you may hear the sounds of a baby during the episode today as dad duty called. Just as the bat signal goes up for Batman, the dad signal went up for Mick during today's episode. So please excuse the odd baby sound, maybe a raspberry here and there. Mick's kid is very cute and he wanted to be a part of the podcast. It's not too much, but you will hear it from time to time throughout the episode. Thank you for your understanding, and with that, let's get on to the show. Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games deep dive review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a friend of the show, returning guest. He is a voice actor, podcaster, D&D adventurer, and vigilante crime fighter. Welcome back to the show, Mick Arcade.
It's great to be back, and I would just like to point out that you have never seen myself and Bruce Wayne in the same room at the same time. I'm not saying anything.
We're not saying anything. We're just pointing that
out, that you've never seen us in the same room at the same time.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show. Bruce Wayne was supposed to be here, mysteriously dropped out. Not sure what happened there.
Huh, weird.
Yeah, kind of weird. But for longtime listeners, you'll recognize Mick from two previous episodes of the podcast. We did Metal Gear Solid together in episode 61 and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic together in episode 94. And today, we're going to talk about Batman Arkham Origins, which is an open-world action game developed by WB Games Montreal and published by Warner Brothers Interactive for contemporary consoles and PC in 2013. Those contemporary consoles being Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii U. Batman Arkham Origins was directed by Eric Holmes and Benoit Richer. I'm going to fucking mess up some French pronunciation of names again in this podcast. This is what I get for trying to give people credit for their work with out loud and not just writing. If this is your first time listening to the show, the way spoilers work on the podcast is we're not going to spoil the story for you for a while. We're going to talk about everything else with no spoilers. And then at a certain point, we're going to warn you when spoilers are coming. We will put a timestamp down in the show notes so you'll know when that time is, and you'll be able to jump out if you don't want to be spoiled on the story of Batman Arkham Origins. So, at the top of the show here, we have some elevator pitches for what is Batman Arkham Origins. I say, this Christmas, Santa wears a bat suit and the naughty kids get brain damage. Mick, what's the top of the show pitch for you?
I don't know if I can top that one, but I will steal from Batman the Animated Series the best I can. And hold on, let me see if I can do this right. Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg, the Batmobile lost its wheel, and the Joker got away. So, yeah.
if you can't top it with, words, then just do
a silly voice.
Yeah, just do a great voice. That works too. This is the Christmas Batman game. So I played this on PC. It took me 17 hours to beat. That was to do the main story and all of the major side quests. I didn't get all the Riddler, side things and stuff like that. But 17 hours, a nice little chunk of game there. Where did you play this? And does that playtime sound right to you?
Yeah, playtime's about right. Like I'm kind of like you. I never do all of the, like Riddler stuff because some of them, especially when you get towards the end of them, are really, really difficult to figure out. Or like you have to get it like the detective vision lined up perfectly to get it. And so it can be tough. But yeah, 17 hours is about right. And I played it on the PlayStation 3.
Nice. All right, so we always start the show with our histories with the games, but today we're talking about Batman. So of course we got to talk about our histories with the Bat and the Arkham series as well. So Mick, when we talked about an episode, we didn't like pre-talk about like selecting from a list of games. I just messaged you and was like, "Do you like Batman?" So I'll repeat the question: do you like Batman? And what's your history with Batman? What's your history with this series?
My history with the Batman. Oh man. I love Batman, so I was born in 1987. So, Batman, the first Batman movie, well, not the first, because obviously it was the Adam West, but the real Batman movie came out in 1989, and I grew up like in the height of Batman, the animated series and Batmania as it was known back then, because you had Batman 89 and then Returns, Forever, Batman and Robin. I distinctly remember that Seal song being played for couples skate when I was in daycare, and we would go to the skating rink and they would be like, as heard in the hit movie Batman Forever, here's Seal, Kiss from a Rose, grab your partners. And like, so like in the early 90s, it was Batmania, just everything about it. I loved him. One of my favorite heroes of all time. Still to this day, I love Batman. I always say, you be anybody you want, but if you can be Batman, be Batman.
Yeah, that's fair.
As far as games, there was a lot of bad ones before the Arkham series. I'm trying to think of one, if any, that come off the top of my head that were at least somewhat fun. I feel like there was a side-scrolling beat 'em up on like Super Nintendo that was okay, but I don't have enough memory to even talk much about it because yeah. But when the Arkham series came out, that was like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm. And then, so did you play Arkham Origins like back in the day, or were you pretty late to get to this like me?
Oh no, I was a day one buyer on this. I actually had an Arkham Origins, when I worked for a game store, periodically they would give you like t-shirts and stuff that were associated with certain games, like pre-order bonus type stuff. So I had like 3 or 4 Arkham Origins shirts that I would just wear as like pajamas, and I literally wore them out. I wore them so much.
Nice.
Just cycled through 4 Arkham Origins shirts. Nice. But yeah, I was a day one guy, because again, it was like at that point we'd gotten Asylum, City, and then Origins, and it was gonna get that.
Right, yeah. So I'm a lot like you as far as history with Batman. You're right, like I was born in 88, so we're very similar, like coming up, the 90s were full of Batman movies. We have Batman, the animated series, which I watched a ton of when I was a kid. But I totally agree with you, and I don't think this is stepping out on a big limb here to say that the Batman games were never that good. I had one for my Game Gear when I was a kid, and I didn't like it. Even as like, an 8-year-old who loved Batman, I didn't like the Batman game that I had. So when Arkham Asylum came out, I bought that day one because I was like, oh yeah, this looks like, it's like a meme now to be like, you get to feel like Batman or whatever. But like, that was
totally
literally,
do.
yeah, it was how it was. Like when you first played Arkham Asylum, you finally got to feel like you're actually playing a Batman game and not just like a side-scrolling beat 'em up with a Batman skin on it. So I was all about that. I played that. I played Arkham City. I didn't like Arkham City as much as Arkham Asylum. And then I didn't buy Arkham Origins for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I didn't. And I just played this for the first time. And Arkham Knight, I also played like for a few minutes, but then I got distracted by something else. So I do have some Arkham left in the tank if I want to consider continuing with this series.
I do highly recommend Arkham Knight.
Yeah, for like, I was going to say, to get into our quick opening thoughts here, I loved Arkham Origins here. This is awesome. Like,
it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, so like I went back and I always go back and see, you know, what are the review scores like? What were people saying at the time? And I was really surprised to see like bunch of 6, 7, 8s out of 10 and not many people giving this game a lot of praise back in the day. And I went back and read like, okay, why? And one of the big complaints that I saw throughout a lot of those, you know, mid reviews was it didn't innovate enough from Arkham City to Arkham Origins, which I like. If you're buying this game a couple years later, I kind of get it. If you're looking for like, you know, new stuff after you just played City pretty recently, sure. But here in 2024, when I'm playing this for the first time and I haven't played Arkham City in over 10 years, I don't care if this didn't innovate. This is just a really fucking fun video game. You play like Batman, you bash some skulls in, you get a collection of these weirdo Batman villains. Like, I really like this. This is legitimately a ton of fun.
It's one of those things that I think a lot of people now are learning. Oh, wow, this is a really great game. Because, again, it's stupid shit. That stuff bothers me so much. It didn't innovate enough. It's like, crawl out of your own ass for 2 seconds and just enjoy this fun-ass video game. Like, it didn't innovate. Who gives a shit? Is it fun? Do you feel like Batman? Do you do cool Batman stuff? Then that should. Sorry, I just have an axe to grind with the stuff like that. It always kills me. And the biggest thing that people were super upset about is they changed the voice actors.
Yeah,
but this is a prequel, so they got younger actors to voice younger versions of the characters. That's why they did it. At the time, no one knew that, and no one knew Arkham Knight was coming, so therefore everybody's like, well, this is nonsense, and they're railing against it because it's not Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. And it's like, I hate to burst everyone's bubble. Mark Hamill is so pissed off at the Arkham games because they didn't give him a cut of the game sales. That he's so mad about it because he's used to how voice acting in animation works, where he gets paid a lot of money from that. Video games work differently. And yeah, he had done video games in the past or whatever, but none of those sold like, billions of dollars worth like the Arkham series did. So he was super salty about it. Right. And I love Mark Hamill and he's an amazing voice actor, but like, that's why he's mad, because he didn't get a cut. But yeah, so I think this game gets a bum rap, and it shouldn't, because it's really good, and it's stupid shit like people being pissy about the voice actors and then saying, oh, well, the game didn't innovate. It's like when people bitch about a TV show and they're like, well, the writing is just, it's like, what do you mean the writing? Like the syntax? Like, shut up. Enjoy it. Sorry. Rant over.
It's I mean, if you were there in the time, like, you know, beating the drum for this game against, you know, the tidal wave of people saying like, you know, it didn't innovate or it doesn't have the voice actors that we want. I totally get that. It's just interesting coming to something like this after the fact where, you know, when viewed in isolation almost, because I haven't played another Arkham game in so long, it's just like, yeah, this is a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool stuff about this game, and there's not much that I have, you know, to criticize about it, really. Like, the story is kind of messy, but like it's Batman, and you're just gonna get a bunch of weird villains, you know, paraded in front of you, and you beat the shit out of them, and then you get to the next one, and that's how this goes, and it's cool. So let's put a pin in some of these various points. We'll listen to a bit of music from the game. We will come back and set up the story for Batman Arkham Origins. So, Batman Arkham Origins is written by Duma Wenshu and Ryan Galeta and Corey May. Again, names, apologies. The title of the game is a bit of a misnomer. This is not Batman's origin story. You begin the game, he's already Batman. But this is in that time period, again, before the events of Arkham Asylum, where people are not quite sure if Batman's real yet. The cops still want to catch him. The Joker has not been introduced to the world of Gotham yet. So it's not like, literally you watch Batman's parents die when he's a kid in that story, but this is young Batman. And one of the things that I wanted to get your take about is, because you probably know a little bit more about Batman than I do, as far as, characterization through time with the character. But this is young Batman, and it's a little bit different than some of the other portrayals of Batman we've seen, like maybe in the Chris Nolan trilogy of movies. So I noticed some things that kind of shocked me about Batman in this game. Most notably, he is down to inflict pain. He's up for torturing people. He's not killing people, but he will step on people's heads. He will hook them up to car batteries and stuff like that. He is aggressive as hell. So I don't have a ton of context for like how the character of Batman might change over time. Does that fit like with how you understand the character of Batman?
Yeah. For the time period in which he would have, been developing, because like sort of what we see from like, I guess, I don't want to say modern or like current, but I guess current Batman, or like Batman who's been doing it for, a number of years, is often referred to as Bat God, because it's a thing of, he's basically infallible. Like he can just figure out everything. He can do anything. Like he's always 2 steps ahead of everybody. Like he's damn near unbeatable and unstoppable. This is not bad. And you kind of see that with the Arkham games as we go further in. Like he becomes a bit more, nothing phases him, and it's sort of the like, one punch, one knockout. Like he's always a step ahead of everybody. Whereas this, he's still a little bit more angry, a little bit more raw, which kind of falls in a little bit with how you see him in Batman Year One. Where he is a little more angry and a little bit more driven by vengeance, and as opposed to just, no, I don't kill, I'm Batman, that sort of thing. So yeah, it fits. I think that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy it, is because it's a different version of the same character that we've seen in the Arkham series, and we're still seeing him try and figure all of this out and figure out how to be Batman and where he fits in this world, and how to deal with these crazy characters and villains and all that. So yeah, I think it's pretty accurate, and I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it was a good characterization. I really enjoyed this. As Batman makes a bunch of mistakes in this game. He gets tricked, which, that it's not like this is the only story that does that. Like the Christopher Nolan trilogy does that too, with, Joker messing with Batman at every turn. And that happens in this game as well. But it is really kind of Batman finding his place in the city as the story goes along. So the game is set on Christmas Eve, which is why this episode is coming out on Christmas. It is set 8 years before the events of Arkham Asylum. Again, you play as Batman, who at the beginning draws the attention of a criminal kingpin named Black Mask. And I was kind of interested by this because I don't know if Black Mask is a continuing character in Batman. I didn't know anything about this character. So I was like, cool.
He is.
New person? Okay, so he is.
He's more of, I don't want to call him more of a minor villain, but he kind of is, because his thing is he's just a gangster. Like that he falls more in with like like Falcone or Maroni, or like all the actual like gangsters in the Batman universe. He's more in their boat as opposed to the Arkham folks. Like I think he ends up getting put in Arkham eventually, but he's also that kind of guy that like fakes insanity so he doesn't go to actual prison. But yeah, his whole thing is he wears a mask so he can still be a legitimate businessman and then do crimes as Black Mask. Like that's literally his only thing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He has been portrayed in one of the movies. He was in the Birds of Prey movie. He was the main villain for that.
Nice. Okay, so what happens at the beginning is Batman interrupts a prison break that Black Mask was orchestrating, and in retaliation, Black Mask sends 8 assassins out after Batman, puts a big bounty on Batman's head. And the 8 assassins are a mixture of Batman villains that, you know, casual fans like me are going to be familiar with, like Bane and Deadshot and characters like that. But there's also others that I'm learning about for the first time, like a character named Copperhead and Vulture.
A jabroni villain.
Yeah. So this is how the game's story begins, we'll say. There's a hit out on Batman. You have these 8 villains going out, and so, like, you know how video games work. You're going to fight all 8 of these villains at some point throughout the story. At the beginning, it was kind of funny. Alfred remarks that at this point in the story, nobody knows who Batman is, his real identity. So he's like, Bruce, you could just chill at home and let this pass. But Batman, of course, is like, no, I can't do that. So
vengeance.
Yeah. The mission of the game is to go out, stop Black Mask, remove the bounty, make sure that Batman's identity remains a secret, and then, of course, you go out, you come across more familiar villains like the Riddler, Joker, Penguin, Killer Croc, and, much more. Like I said at the beginning, it is a parade of all of the lovable weirdo villains that you're in a Batman story for. So, what do you think, Mick? Fun story in this game?
I think so. It's cool. I like the 8 assassins. I think that's neat, especially because you get to see different versions, again, of the same villains you do. Like, Killer Croc's design in this one is way different than it is in Asylum and City, and even more so in Arkham Knight. But that's a thing. Like, that's part of the affliction that Croc has, is he continues to become more crocodile-like and more reptile-like as he gets older. So that was cool. Deathstroke being in it, he makes appearances later. A few other ones, like Riddler in it isn't the Riddler yet. I think he calls himself Enigma, if I remember. Yeah, he's still not Riddler, but he's basically Riddler. So that's cool. Penguin is kind of the same that he is in all of them. But also, I really like this version of the Joker because there's a lot of intrigue and mystery, and it serves as the introduction of Batman to Joker. So that's super cool to see and, take part of in a game.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about this game is the Arkham series, and then, most Batman stories that I've come across are basically Batman versus the Joker in some form. So to see the beginning of that, and this game kind of focuses for a while on these two big characters kind of feeling each other out, like the Joker trying to figure out what makes Batman tick, Batman trying to figure out what Joker's whole deal is. That's kind of what this story does. And so the plot of this game is kind of messy, but there are little storylines along the way. Like, Joker legitimately does not know what to make of Batman. He's like, what are you? Why do you do the things that you do? And that's something that I found interesting, playing along and experiencing here. And you had mentioned earlier that the voice actors had switched. So let's just talk about that for a second. So Roger Craig Smith plays Batman, who I know as the voice of Sonic. And then...
which is hilarious.
Yeah, very different role for sure. And Troy Baker plays Joker in this game. And
kills it.
Yeah, it's like... before we recorded, I watched a side-by-side comparison of Hamill's Joker versus Troy Baker's Joker, and Troy Baker is very close to what Mark Hamill did, if not just as good. For all of the whinging about not having the same actors, and I get, you want to have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, but the actors that were here are excellent, and especially the role of the Joker, the voice, the laughing, all of that stuff can't be easy. And Troy Baker knocked it out of the park. So hey, Troy Baker, good voice actor. Who knew?
Yeah, it's weird, right? One of the most celebrated voice actors of our time. killed the role. Troy Baker has also played Batman in a game, so I think he's like the only guy that's played both Batman and Joker in video games, because he did it in the Telltale series. He's Batman in that series. But yeah, I think the voice acting is so strong in all of these games, and like I said, you're dealing with younger versions of the characters, and I'm sorry, like at that point, both Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are, I think, in their 60s. They're not gonna sound like a 22 or 23-year-old Batman or whatever how old he's supposed to be. Like, he's just not. And it's because he's, regardless of how good of a voice actor he is, takes a toll, and your voice gets older and sounds older, and it's totally okay. But I think people just latch on to the wrong things and get upset without giving it its due. If you just didn't tell people they recast him, I would have liked to have seen what the reaction would have been to that.
Yeah. I was going to say, it feels like people who are, mad about it, feels like they didn't give these actors a chance, because they did a great job. Other notable characters and voice actors in the game, Nolan North voices the Penguin. The Penguin's voice is, it is just an insane accent in this game. It's like if you asked me, who's not a trained voice actor, to do my worst British accent, it would be what Nolan North sounds like in this game.
It's like he wants to be like a gangster voice, but British. So it just, it's very, I've always thought it's very strange.
It's odd. It's not me saying that like Nolan North can't hack it, because obviously he can, but it's a weird voice to give to the Penguin, I think. And maybe it's just different from, other versions of the Penguin that I've seen. Martin Jarvis voices Alfred, and, the role of Alfred is there to, be the voice of reason, very calm all the time, and I think he did a great job there too. So if voice acting is one of the things that people most commonly, say Arkham Origins is lesser because of, I don't really agree with that, with the exception of the Penguin having a weird voice. I'm inclined to put that on direction more so than Nolan North's ability to act.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was so when because he voices him across, I believe, all the games. I think Nolan North does him in all the Arkham games. And Paul Williams did the Penguin in the television show. Paul Williams is, I can't remember what else he's Fan with the Paradise. That's right. He's known for like Fan with the Paradise, and he's a musician and all that. But they didn't bring him back in to do the Arkham games. So you have, I think, Nolan North trying to come in and just like do something, not do like his cover version of Paul Williams. He wanted to do like his own thing, but it is so weird.
It's odd. Yeah. So, all told, like the portrayals, the characterization of the characters, I really enjoyed. And then the story goes through a lot of the same themes that a lot of Batman media does. But again, this is early on. So Batman and Alfred and the police force, trying to figure each other out. Gotham is a corrupt place. You have other characters that are trying their hand at vigilantism, whether it is, what's that other character's name? I can't remember.
Anarchy.
Anarchy, yeah. His name is actually Anarchy. Yeah, it's just spelled differently. And that one has a famous voice actor too. I want to say it's Matthew Mercer.
It is Mr. D&D himself.
Yeah. So a star-studded cast in this game for sure. And as you go, Arkham gets torn apart by various things. And one of the, back and forths that develops between Batman and some of the other villain characters is, we're here because you're here type of thing. Like Batman's there because the Joker's there, and the Joker's there because Batman's there. And we have this interesting, coexistence, and one wouldn't exist without the other type of, back and forth theme that's brought up. And I always find those kind of conversations interesting, but especially in Batman stories.
Agreed. It's always that thing of, are all of these crazy villains in Gotham because of Batman? Because Batman is a crazy, weird hero? Or is he in Gotham because of all the, it's kind of chicken or the egg type of thing. It's like you said with Joker questioning, like, why are you like this? Why are you here? But Batman's almost asking Joker the same questions. It's like, why are you like this? What, so it really is very interesting. And Joker, figuring out Batman's place in Gotham in his life is a really cool like story thread throughout the game.
Yeah. So like, since this is a prequel, we know where the story is going to end. We know how Arkham Asylum begins with, Joker in prison, but the way that they get there and the way they kind of explore these characters feeling each other out, their roles in Gotham and things like that. And then just, the parade of interesting characters along the way that you meet, even if they're, one scene, one boss fight and done. It is an entertaining ride. So I enjoyed the story in this about as much as I've enjoyed, any of the Arkham stories, to be honest. So it's a fun ride.
I think to me, this one has a lot more just direct Batman feel, because like Arkham Asylum is, yes, it's a Batman story, but it's more about the asylum, and the history of the asylum and, everything craziness there, and kind of like it's got its own ecosystem and life of its own. But because this takes place, and City is just sort of an extension of that, where you're in this weird version of Gotham, but this is actually Gotham. As you would want to see it, So I think that's why it feels more like a Batman story and a Gotham exploratory story, as opposed to, hey, here's this weird, crazy, insane asylum that's haunted and has all this weird shit going on.
Yeah, fun story. Let's listen to a bit of music, put ourselves back in that, Gotham City frame of mind, and we'll come back and talk about the presentation in this game. So, talking about presentation in Arkham Origins, we'll start with the way it looks, and the lead artist for this game is Jeremy Price. And since I played this on PC, on, a fairly nice PC, I can't speak to the original console versions, and, you probably can, but I thought this game looked fantastic on PC. Gotham is a stylized place. It's not really modeled to look like a real city. The buildings all have this, of course, famous Gothic architecture and stuff like that, but it is a bit stylized. They're not going for like real photorealism in this game, and that helps this hold up visually, I think, better than a lot of games, frankly, from the Xbox 360, PS3 type generation.
I think it looked good on console as well, and I think a big part of that is the general design and look of the game, because it's dark enough without being too dark, and it's got that distinct art style, so I think that really helps kind of preserve it to where it looks good.
Yeah, agreed. And this one's a little bit newer too, so it might have that going for it. Also, because this game takes place on Christmas Eve, Gotham is decorated for Christmas. And this was a really interesting, how do I want to describe this? Like contrast in tones. Gotham is not a post-apocalypse, but it kind of is. Like the city's a mess, and it's a grimy, dirty, rundown place in a lot of places. So it kind of has that feel of, post-apocalyptic fiction a little bit. And then you contrast that with, Santas and Christmas lights and Christmas trees around the city. It feels wrong.
It feels like New York circa 1982 or something, where everything's just dirty. Everything probably smells like piss.
Yeah.
But hey, there's some Santas and some lights and some snowmen, so whatever.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. And to me, Batman, and maybe it's because of Batman Returns takes place at Christmas as well. Batman always, like when you think Christmas and Batman, they just kind of seem to go together.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes into the soundtrack too. One of the cool things about this soundtrack is it's like a dark and brooding Batman soundtrack, but sprinkled in there are Christmas instruments. Like, so you'll have like the dark orchestra sound with bells and chimes and xylophones and Christmassy melodies and sleigh bells shaking in the background and stuff like that. Some of the songs in here are rearrangements of like classic Christmas music as well. Joker's theme in particular is Carol of the Bells, just, redone for this dark Batman story. So that clash of like this grimy ass, corrupted city with Christmas is a nice contrast in tones. Really works for this game.
And Christopher Drake has done a lot of Batman music.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, he did Dark Knight Returns. He did the soundtrack for both animated movies of that, and he's done it for a bunch of stuff. So yeah, he's got a ton of Batman music experience, which is cool.
Yeah. Other like presentation elements, I guess, just little touches that I thought were cool as you're playing and as you're fighting, especially Batman's suit gets, torn up. It will collect bullet holes as you're fighting and stuff like that, which is a fun touch. All of the different, goons and thugs that you're beating up in the game have fun designs. The designs for the big villains as well, they are more, and this is the same in all the Arkham games, but they're more cartoony or more stylized, I'll say, than and over the top than the movies or the animated series with these same villains. So like if you haven't seen the way Joker looks in the Arkham series, but in this game as well, Joker doesn't really look like a real person in this game as he, kind of does in the Christopher Nolan trilogy of movies and the animated series. Same with the Penguin. The Penguin's gross as fuck.
Yes.
So the way the characters are designed is really fun. It lends to this like more stylized version and presentation.
No, I agree. I think this particular series has my favorite design of Deathstroke. I just think he looks so damn cool in this, the way his armor is, his mask, all that kind of stuff.
Looks like a Metal Gear villain.
Yeah, he really does.
Yeah.
He basically is a Metal Gear villain, but it's a whole nother thing. No, I love the designs. I think they're cool. And it also feels like, oh, this is what they looked like early on. They're still trying to figure out, like, what does my villain drip look like at the end of the day?
The only bit of like presentation criticism that I have is the camera is kind of weird, especially as if you're running through, hallway levels, or if you get into combat, the camera will like shift around in big dramatic presentation type of ways. And sometimes it gives you angles that are not helpful at all, and sometimes really confusing. But other than that, presentation of this I thought was really, really good. So the combat and gameplay in Arkham Origins, this is an open world game. It has third-person combat, and let's talk about that combat first, because this is an oddly, like if you were to stack up games that are influential in combat systems across, big blockbuster video games, I think it's kind of weird that Batman games kind of set a standard for combat for a little while. And so this has what is now known as Arkham Combat, which is very common around, especially this era, like the mid-2000s era of action games. This has a focus on chaining together combos of attacking big groups of enemies, and then enemies will get an indicator when they're attacking, and your primary thing that you have to do is counter, parry, and counterattack the enemy attacks that are coming in. And so you get into this rhythm of combo, 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 and then an enemy will come in from the side. They'll have an indicator. You block their attack. You punch them a few times. Then someone else comes in. You block what they're doing. And what it ends up in is this really impressive looking, free flowing, like enemy to enemy, 1 versus like 15 type of combat system that really works for superhero games, I think. And I'm also playing the Mad Max game right now, which uses this combat system as well.
I think it's made by one of the same studios.
It's
a
WB
studio.
yeah.
No, they killed it because like the Shadow of Mordor games have it. Assassin's Creed, I think, is similar. I've not played enough Assassin's Creed to make that determination.
It's kind of similar, yeah.
Yeah, but no, like you said, it's wild. Like it's the Arkham combat.
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of games are not doing this that much anymore, except for the Spider-Man games that Sony does, but this is a fun combat system, a satisfying combat system. I don't think that it's like perfect, and the main reason why is a lot of fights feel basically the same, and if you're fighting a lot of enemies, what you're doing is you are just pressing X 150 times with the occasional Y to counterattack. And then it's really just realizing that an attack is coming and then press X a bunch. If you're trying to build up your combos to like very high numbers, then you need to be aware of like, oh, I can't just punch air. I need to like stop mashing the button, go over and find a new enemy to hit and stuff like that. But the criticism that I would give this combat system is it is kind of samey, and my hands hurt sometimes. Like my hands got tired because I pressed X so many times in certain combat encounters.
No, that's 100%. I know that you can throw batarangs at points or smoke bombs or grapple, and I never got great at integrating that because to me it was just easier to keep punching dudes in the head. You know, but on the other side of it, you do feel like Batman. It feels like, oh yeah, this is how Batman fights. Like you feel like you were a skilled martial artist and all that. And mixing the gadgets is cool. I was like, I'm just going to keep punching people because I missed with a batarang, and it was like, well, that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I couldn't really figure out how to integrate the gadgets into combat either. And it's just because like you're incentivized to press X 100 times in a row, but in the middle of that, you need to use these other commands to throw out gadgets. And I could never remember, while I'm getting guys like running at me or like enemies have guns and they're shooting at me, how do I access the batarang? How do I access the smoke grenade and not the explosive gel, stuff like that. So the combat system's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but it's like there are criticisms of this combat system that I totally agree with. But it's cool, and one of the cool things about it is the animations are very like context dependent based on where you are, where enemies are, how many enemies are attacking you. So when you're chaining together these combos, the parries and things like that, the animations flow into each other like super smoothly and really, really impressively. You don't have Batman snapping around in unnatural ways to counter enemies that are coming from a weird angle. It all feels super good. And it's not like these are, bespoke. This enemy comes from the right, so we have this animation ready for it. This is all like on the fly, just based on where everything is situationally. So that's really impressive.
And the enemies don't feel stupid, I guess. Like it doesn't feel like, wow, the AI is dumb. And they legitimately are like, where's my moment to try and get in to attack Batman? How do I do this? And they're trying to at least be tactical, or at least based off the animations, it feels like that.
Yeah, for sure. And they'll, if you beat up an enemy that had a weapon and they fall, they'll drop the weapon and another enemy will run and go pick it up. Same with your first priority in combat is to take out any enemies that have guns, because just like the rest of us,
the only thing that Batman fears is a gun.
It's Batman's one weakness, just like all of us, is guns. So you got to take them out, but then you'll get distracted in the fight and you'll see out of the corner of your eye, oh, this other asshole's going over to pick up that gun. I got to go take care of that right now.
And you hear the cocking noise of the gun.
They have to reload it. Yeah. Yeah. So there is a lot of different things that pop up second to second in combat. But again, with your hands, you are just pressing X a ton of times. So a little bit of criticism, but very, very fun combat system. And, of all the combat systems to get popular, I'm not mad that this was one of them.
Oh, for sure. And I think that criticism extends to pretty much all the games that follow this combat style, because like Lord of the Rings feels like that. Spider-Man can feel like that. I think it's just the way this system goes. It's sort of like God of War was as well. Mm-hmm. It had the same type of, every game needs to play like this combat wise, and they all have the same problem.
Yep. But it is a fun combat system, but this game is not all combat, because like we said, Batman's weakness is guns. Bulletproof Batsuit is apparently not a thing. So sometimes you'll roll into areas that are populated by a bunch of enemies that have guns, and these are your stealth areas. So these are kind of different from the big brawls that you'll get into. These are stealth playgrounds. And, if you've played these, we're talking about the areas where there's a bunch of goons. There are gargoyle statues that Batman will jump up on and perch on and swing from statue to statue. If an enemy walks below your perch, you can do what's called the inverted takedown, where Batman will string them up by their feet and hang them upside down to die of, blood rushing to the head or whatever. But
or pass out unconscious. Wink.
Yeah.
A guy being hung upside down for like 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever. They're all dead, Batman. You're not killing people. They're dying.
No, Batman's body count is much higher than the Joker's, like by orders of magnitude.
How many spines has he just he's not killing people, but he's kind of making it so that I don't think people want to continue living.
Exactly.
It's like I stuck up the 7-Eleven and Batman broke my spine in 3 places.
Yes, 100%. So that stringing enemies upside down is the most famous part of these stealth sections. And it's cool. While you remain undetected, the enemies will get increasingly more and more panicked. They'll start to argue with each other. They'll start to get scared. That's really, really good. But what I had forgotten, because it'd been so long since I played one of these games, is that these stealth arenas are little playgrounds with a bunch of stuff that you can play with. They're full of explosive things you can throw the Batarang out to blow up. They're full of grates in the floor and in the wall, and you can hide and pop out, take out an enemy, then duck down into the grates again. There are places you can spray your explosive gel and remotely blow it up to take enemies out. There's a ton you can do. It's really fun.
It's literally my favorite portion of the game is the stealth sections. Yeah, because of, like you said, all the essential little playground that you get of, I'm going to use a smoke bomb, and then I can use, the explosive gel or a Batarang, and then I'm going to blow up this breakable wall while throwing a Batarang and take out 2 guys at once, and then, swoop down from the rafters and grab this guy. And it's
got a big raspberry there from Dante.
It's his favorite part too.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's my favorite part. It's just so cool, and you can get so creative, especially the further you get in and the more gadgets you get, it becomes cooler.
Yeah, 100%. And as they introduce more enemies and more gimmicks, an enemy will be introduced into the game that blocks your Batman detective vision, so you can't use that superpower. Basically, it's one of the only superpowers that Batman has is the detective vision in this game that highlights all the enemies, highlights all the interactable stuff. So if there are enemies, behind walls or whatever, that will show them to you. Sometimes an enemy will come in that interferes with that. Sometimes there are sniper enemies that do a ton more damage to you. Some enemies have mines that blow up after they die. So they introduce complications to this as it goes along. And it got to the point where in the hardest version of this, these are legitimate challenges. They'll start blowing up your gargoyle statues also to take away that crutch. That's the easiest place to hide.
God, it was so frustrating when they do that.
So these are fun, and they introduce a level of creativity to gameplay that I don't think is really there in the combat. The combat's just a showcase of animation and, cool impact, like slowdowns when you take out an enemy. One presentation thing I think is great is when you hit the final punch to take out the last enemy in a group, you get this big dramatic zoom in, slow down, really, give you that impact
it's
of that.
Very cool.
That final blow, yeah.
I also like that whoever's henchman you're going after, so if it's the Penguin or Joker or Black Mask, they're talking to their guys while you're doing it. You know, like, he's taking out another one of you. Oh, you're gonna, I don't know whose voice that was supposed to be, but, they're talking shit to their own men usually for getting their asses kicked, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. They'll call in, they'll berate them. Sometimes say like, "Hey, if you can't take him out, don't bother coming back from this because you're dead." So the final part of like talking about gameplay in Arkham Origins is the fact that it's an open world game. It's feels large, but it is fairly small as an open world, and it's dense, full of stuff to do. So one of the important things about an open world game is how you get around the open world. And it's interesting coming back to Arkham, because I played Arkham City, then I played the Sony Spider-Man game, which, is basically just like the perfect way to get around an open world. Nothing feels better than web slinging in Spider-Man. And Arkham, because Batman doesn't have, web shooting superpowers, Batman has gadgets. And so the way it works in this game is you shoot your grappling hook, it will grab onto a ledge, you'll pull yourself toward the ledge, and then you can get a speed boost and like launch yourself up over it. Then you're airborne, you can glide, you can dive bomb to gain speed, and then pull back up and kind of just glide around the city. Then when you start to lose momentum, latch onto another ledge and do it again. So it's very similar to web swinging in a Spider-Man game with a few steps along the way. It's just not quite as smooth. It doesn't feel as good, but once you get the hang of it, you can zip around pretty well.
I think it's pretty cool. And I'm with you. It's open world, but it's small enough to where it's filled with stuff. So I think it works. And obviously the main mode of transportation I think anybody wants in a open world Batman game is the Batmobile, which, hey, guess what they add in the next game?
Right.
But for this one, utilizing the Batwing works really well. And you can use it to fast travel at times, which is great. But I think because of the inherent nature of Spider-Man, it just makes for a way smoother navigation of an open world in that regard. And they did the best they could with what they had in this particular game. And again, with it being actual Gotham, that's great, as opposed to, we're in Arkham City. It's like, okay, cool. So I'm trapped in walls without, whereas this isn't the case. Like, you actually can go pretty much wherever. You're limited to being in Gotham ultimately.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So as you said there is a lot of stuff to do as you're going around. And so, you'll fast travel. The fast travel's limited. There are like set points where you can fast travel to, but it's weird. It's not like you fast travel to the main locations where your story missions take place. You will get dropped off in the sky out of the Batwing in the general area, and then you'll have to glide over to where you want to go, which is cool. You get a big speed boost coming out of dropping from the Batwing, which is nice. But then, so you're going to have to go through the city a lot, and there's a lot of stuff to do along the way. We talked in the top of the show about all of the collectibles for the Riddler / Enigma in this game. They're little puzzles. Some of them I felt were a little bit like didn't explain themselves well with like how they're set up. I had to look up, how to do some, but generally I just kind of did the ones where like if I would pull up to one and be like, oh, I know what to do here, I would do it. And if I pulled up and I was like, I have no fucking idea, then I would just move on because there's no way I'm going to do them all anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it is sort of that thing where you sit there and you go, oh man, the city's in danger. I have to stop the Joker.
But I need to spend the next 3 hours trying to solve this puzzle from the Riddler.
Yeah. So there's the Riddler things, and those are for like the real completionist sickos, the platinum trophy sickos. You can do all of those things if you really want to. The big draw for me as far as side content goes is there are these crime scene investigations around the city that will lead into side quest chains with other villains. So like this is how you get
I
into
love
the
them. I love them
great.
so much.
This is how you get into the side quests with Deadshot and with some of the other, there's a villain called Shiva that you do a side quest with. These are really fun. So you'll get into a crime scene where, you know, Batman will do technology enhanced crime scene reconstruction, figure out, you know, oh, well, the angle of the shot came from here, so the shooter was on that balcony, and you go there, you do your forensic analysis, and you're like, oh, this caliber of bullet could have only been Deadshot, and then
it's very cool. It's one of those things that it's small in a way ultimately, because you're just, I turn on detective mode and connect dots.
Yeah.
But you feel like Batman doing it, and it feels like stuff Batman would do and investigate and try and figure out. So it's a cool addition to unlocking missions in that regard.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that.
It is fun, and you know, Batman will call in and be like, Alfred, can you scan, you know, this blood sample that I just picked up? And Alfred will do it, and he'll call back and tell you whose blood it is, and then you can follow the trail. So I really liked these optional side quests with the big villains. Big standouts to me were the Deadshot quest line, and then the Mad Hatter has a side quest, like you go into this, you know, Alice in Wonderland hallucination zone, and I thought that was fun.
His was super cool. He basically, I think, takes the role of like Scarecrow in the other games, like, but again, freshens it up. It's different, and it's cool.
Yep. So, you know, open world games are somewhat defined in quality by, you know, the quality of how you traverse around in the open world. And then what are you doing in the open world if you're not just doing the main mission stuff? What's the point of having an open world? You know, different games approach this in different ways. I think of like the Horizon series gives you a big open world so that you have massive arenas to fight robot dinosaurs in. But the side content is not necessarily great, at least not in the first game. Batman and Spider-Man, you know, give you really fun traversal to go through, and then, you know, collectible stuff along the way. But I did think like the big standout here is the side missions with those villains are quite good and really worth doing. You know, don't try to get all the Riddler trophies, but the other stuff is good.
Yeah, I think if you solve all the Riddler stuff, you just basically complete his quest, which is the cops capturing him. Like, that's, if I remember correctly, that's what it is in literally every single game. When you do all the Riddler stuff, it's because he taunts you the whole time, and he's talking to you via his own, you know, frequency and all that. And so if you do them all, you finally figure out where he's hiding and send the cops to get him, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, for sure. So, gameplay wise, you know, a ton of fun here. And let's listen to just a bit more music. When we come back, we'll do our wrap-ups, recommendations, plugs, and other housekeeping before we get into spoilers for Arkham Origins. So in this section, we kind of wrap up any loose thoughts, tie it all together, closing thoughts, but then also answer the question, who would you recommend play Batman Arkham Origins?
Everyone is that answer. What can I say? I do. I think if you're a fan of Batman and you've played any of the other Arkham, even if you haven't, this one is actually a really great intro because it is a prequel. So you get that kind of, this is where everything started off. This is where everybody came from. This is the establishment of those relationships. Because I think that's sort of the, not issue, but I think that was one of always the ambiguous questions from Asylum was, is this tied to the animated series? Is it a continuation? Like, is it its own story? We get that answer in Origins as you get to see, oh, well, this is where this all starts. And it really is its own universe and story and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend it for that.
Yeah, it really is like basically like if you like Batman, this game's awesome. You're going to enjoy this. And I think removed from a lot of those things, again, that people may have dinged it for back in 2013, I think that there's a lot to like about this game. And yeah, Batman fans, this is a no-brainer. You got to play this. Even if you played the other Arkham games, even if you haven't, doesn't really matter. I think you'll have a good time with this. And you make a good point, like, it is an interesting point in the story of Batman, where Batman is being introduced to all these other characters. The Gotham police are being introduced to Batman. It's just, it's a fun way for them to tell a new story, we'll say, even if it's not brand new.
I think it establishes its own origin really well. That was a stupid joke. No, it establishes its own origin. And I think even if you just dig these style of gameplays, like if you're not the biggest Batman fan, but you're like, man, I really like the Spider-Man games, I think they're cool, or I like the Lord of the Rings games, I would recommend playing it for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for people who are not big Batman fans, like, if you hate Batman and can't stand it, then probably don't play it. But if you're not the biggest Batman fan, but you do like this style of gameplay, if you like an open world game, if you like, a fun visually designed game, if you like other superhero games, I think there's a lot to like here for sure. So pretty easy recommendations for the both of us for Arkham Origins. It's a good game. And again, doesn't deserve the flack that it got. Certainly doesn't deserve to be seen as like so much lesser than the rest of the Arkham series. And I think a lot of people may assume that also because Rocksteady did all the other games, and this is the only one that's not Rocksteady.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it too, is people were like, it's lesser because it's not Rocksteady.
Which doesn't make sense to me. This feels exactly the same.
Yeah, there's no difference to me. Honestly, I think in some ways this is better than City. I think this is better than Arkham City in a lot of ways.
I liked it more than City. Yeah, this is a weird, kind of unpopular opinion I have, but I didn't like City that much. I liked Asylum much more. And I like Origins more than I liked City. And I'm open to replaying it because it's been over 10 years. But yeah, as it stands right now, this is up there with Asylum for me as far as Arkham games go.
Yeah, I to me, it improves on a lot of things that City introduced and does them better. Mostly because you're not trapped in Arkham City. You get to actually be in Gotham, which to me is a huge difference.
Yeah. So at the end of this section here, as we wind down the no spoiler portion of the episode, we like to do our housekeeping. We always start with giving the guest a chance to talk about the things that they do and where people can find them. So at the top of the show, I said Mick does a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of places where you might hear his voice. So please tell people some stuff that you do and where they can find you.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a dad, which you may have heard my progeny at points during this podcast. Because
future podcaster making a bunch of noise as we do.
Dave is a saint, so yeah, I appreciate that. But I do voice act. I'm kind of all over the place, and I'm always looking to do new projects and just interesting things. You can hear me kind of on a regular basis with Doorway to Nightmare. It's a horror and mystery centric, and I don't want to call it anthology, but it's kind of an anthology. I mean, they're just a bunch of various horror and mystery stories, and I almost always play psychopaths and old men for them. So if you hear a crazy man or you hear an old man, it's probably me. So I do that for them. I am part of an ongoing audio series that Rhonda Parker does called Renegade Shadow, in which I play a werewolf. So I do that somewhat regularly. It's pretty fun because I get to be a werewolf, and who wouldn't?
I was going to say a psychopath werewolf or an old
no,
man werewolf?
I'm actually a dad werewolf. I'm very much like here. Hi, how you doing? Like, yeah, it's it's kind of funny. But I do that, which is a lot of fun. I do a lot of stuff D&D related with Playodic Games on Twitch, so twitch.tv/Playodic Games, and our D&D troop, we do a ton of stuff. We raise a lot of money for charity, like Extra Life and things like that every year. We've done some conventions all around the country. We've done North Carolina, we've done Texas, we've done Oklahoma, we've done Virginia. Like, we've gone a few places, and it's a lot of really good stuff, and it's a good bunch of folks. So if you like tabletop, check us out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I will make sure to put links down in the show notes to everything that Playodic is doing, the Twitch channel, and any charity work that might be happening when this episode comes out. I want to share that with people for sure. And if you're listening to this and you have need of a voice actor, you should hit Mick up. He does a bunch of good voices.
Please call me.
So yeah, highly recommended. And if you're out there listening, you have a podcast, as you can tell, Mick is a great podcast guest as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for this show, if you've enjoyed the episode so far, if you're going to tap out now because spoilers are upcoming, that is cool. Please consider leaving a rating and review. It will help people find the show. Especially, I know people are going to be looking for the most famous Christmas game of them all to listen to a podcast on Christmas. That'll be this episode, so we'll help people find it. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podcast Addict. You can join the Discord server, which is a great group of people in there talking about games, and hopefully some conversation about Arkham over the coming week. So there's an invite link in the show notes for you. We'd love to have you. You can listen to my other podcast, which is called A Top 3 Podcast, where we do top 3 lists. And last but not least, if you want to support the show monetarily, you can do that at patreon.com/realdavejackson. And that is all of the housekeeping. We're going to take a music break. I'll do my thank yous during the music break. And when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Arkham Origins. All right, before we get to spoilers for Batman Arkham Origins, I have some guest appearances to let you know about, and also the customary patron thank yous. So, I was recently on 2 podcasts that you should go check out. I was on Pixel Project Radio, talking about a kind of personal journey getting into Souls games, both for me and for Rick, the host of that show. That's a fun episode. You can check down in the show notes for a link. I was also on Superpod Saga recently to talk through the Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 games. I said it like Nintendo says it. The Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 games. So you can check Superpod Saga. Again, there's a link in the show notes. And thank you to the people who help support the show on Patreon, like Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast Crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Jeff, formerly Jerf, Kieran, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt, aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Randall, Jake Martin, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, David Stecco, a new patron, Lenka, and many more. Thank you all for your support. I've been talking for a while. Let's get to spoilers for Batman Arkham Origins. All right, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Batman Arkham Origins. And as always, this is not a linear walk through the story, so we might spoil endgame stuff very quickly. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled at all, please consider playing the game and coming back. We will always be here for you.
Always.
So the big thing about this story, and this is not a deep story, but we're going to talk about some fun, memorable stuff. The big, I guess, spoiler about the story is that we mentioned that there is Black Mask who set out these assassins to find Batman. And we mentioned that Joker is in the game. But what we didn't mention is that this was like Black Mask is a real person that's in the game, but who you think is Black Mask blackmailing Batman and all of that, that's actually the Joker posing as Black Mask. And that's the big reveal.
Yeah.
And then the game becomes about Batman and Joker after that.
And it's such a cool reveal and done so well because they don't tip their hat at all until they do. And then that's when they reveal, which was very cool because the lead into this game, they didn't show Joker. They didn't talk about Joker. And I think they were kind of, like, oh, yeah, you might see where people came from or whatever, but Black Mask is the villain of this game.
Yeah.
And spoilers, he's not. It's the Joker.
Yeah. And so, like, that's kind of where a little bit of my criticism about the plot comes from is once we had, like, this very clear thing where, like, Black Mask is the villain, and one of the first things that you do is you go, you're trying to find information about Black Mask, so you go to the Penguin's ship, which just real quick, the design of that ship is really cool. It's like this Art Deco, but like reminded me a lot of BioShock. Like the inside of that ship is BioShocky for sure.
Yeah, which was very cool. And I after this, he moves to the Iceberg Lounge, which is, kind of where he's known for. But
yeah,
I liked it. I was like, okay, this is cool. Yeah, and it makes sense. Like he's a gun runner, so he would have a ship of some caliber like this. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and then after you're done with that, you're following the trail of Black Mask, but then it shifts into Joker, which then leaves all of these assassins that are out there. They feel less connected to the story now, except for a couple of them that come back. Like Bane comes back a bunch of times. A lot of them are optional. Like you don't have to fuck with Deadshot if you don't want to.
You could just be like, nah.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Electrocutioners.
Yeah. That one's funny.
That's the best bit. That's my teacher as well. Steve Bloom.
Oh,
voiced
nice.
by
Yeah.
my teacher. So yeah.
I said earlier, like you have a boss fight against all 8 of these. That's not really true because Electrocutioner comes in, Batman knocks him out in one punch during a cutscene.
Which is hilarious.
It's very funny. And then the next time you see him, he gets like kicked off a balcony and falls to his death? ?
Oh yeah, no, he's dead.
Yeah,
because he never shows back up.
Yeah. So, we have this, and he looks badass too. So the way that works, that's where Batman gets an upgrade. He takes Electrocutioner's shock gloves, which turns into one of the more ridiculous plot points in this game, where Bane attacks the Batcave and Alfred gets damaged. Like a boulder falls on Alfred and he's lying there dying, and Batman defibrillates him using Electrocutioner's like attack shock gloves.
Which is so fucking metal. I will say the one thing that kind of bumped me out is we never see Bane break the bat, which it happens in the Arkham timeline, just in none of the games. I think it would have been really cool if Bane does it in this, which I guess they sort of replace it with him almost killing Alfred. Yeah. But I think it would have been really cool if they would have incorporated him breaking Batman somehow. Yeah. Because then the comeback to whoop his ass would have been even cooler.
Yeah, it would have been cool. Bane has some interesting stuff, an interesting role in the story to play in another way, because once the Black Mask story is over, there's kind of 2 main things going on in the story. The first is the Joker's planted a bunch of bombs around the city, and he's just kind of fucking with Batman, trying to figure him out. The other part of it is that Bane has discovered that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And so that's like, you need to take Bane out because he holds this secret. But the way that the place they go with this particular storyline was really interesting and like ties it off in a really neat way, I thought, like tidy way.
Very clean. Yeah, right. With he because he takes that version of Venom or whatever. So he just forgets that Bruce Wayne and Batman are one and the same, which although I think about it and I'm like, well, couldn't he figure it out again though? He did it once.
I didn't know if it damaged just your memory or if it damaged like your brain in general. I think it was just memory, maybe.
Yeah, it would make sense if it was your brain as well, because, Bane kind of becomes singularly focused on like, I must break you, Batman.
Yeah, I guess, that's how brain damage works, right? It's not just like wipe your memory one time with
They're
this
like,
chemical. Then he's cool
nanomachines is how
Yeah.
Bane will forget that Batman and Bruce Wayne are this one
bringing
and the
it
same.
back. Just get Bane hooked up with Liquid Snake, get some nanomachines, everything will be fine. But yeah, that's how that kind of resolves, and it turns into you have a series of boss fights with Bane, and in the first couple, it's just regular. He's just a big, strong guy using the venom in a responsible way, we'll say.
Like one does. He's just
Yeah.
on a little bit of juice.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, he drinks responsibly, as they say.
It's true. Yeah. He just rubs a little bit of cocaine on his gums so he doesn't get addicted. It's fine.
Just a little bit. He's
Just
fine.
a little.
But then, after losing 3 boss fights against Batman, he uses too much of the venom and he turns into like the big monster version of Bane. And that's the breaking point where after that's over, he can't remember that Bruce Wayne is Batman anymore. But that articulates in a cool boss fight, I think, where he's too strong to just fight. And so you have a stealth boss fight. And this is one of the things I meant to mention in the non-spoiler part, but the boss fights are all pretty varied and a lot of fun in this game.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's what kind of makes up for, when you're fighting the henchman type guys, it gets, a little monotonous, a little repetitive. I think the boss fights really make up for it and break up that sort of like, here we go again. And the stealth sections. I think the stealth sections are sprinkled through enough that it can break up that monotony and sort of save it. But no, the boss fights are crazy fun. Like the Copperhead boss fight's fun. The Deathstroke one is awesome.
Yeah. So there's 2 main, when I say tutorial, test type boss fights in this game. And Deathstroke is the one where it's it's at the end of the Penguin's boat mission. So it's pretty early in the game. And that's the one where it's do you know how to fight melee combat? Do you know how to counter moves? Do you know how to quick throw a batarang when something's, explosive is in the area or something like that? That one was a lot of fun. Took me a bunch of tries, but was always a good time as I'm kind of figuring out the different phases and stuff.
I will say this game is one of the only games where it's fun when you lose sometimes because whatever villain beats you, they show up and lean over you and talk some shit to you, which is always just what they say changes almost every time when because I think they have 4 or 5 different things they can say, and again depending on who or when it is, it's very cool.
Yeah, for sure. The other kind of we'll say kind of tutorial-ish skill check boss fight is Deadshot is the same kind of thing, but it's testing you in those stealth environments. And this is an optional fight, but Deadshot has a bunch of henchmen in the room, so you kind of have to clear the henchmen out a little bit. But then when Deadshot sees you, he can bounce bullets around. He can
which is
do
super
a bunch
cool.
of it's a legit challenge. And then at the end of that fight, Deadshot takes a hostage, and you have to get to him in the middle of this crowded room unseen. So that is as hard as any stealth challenge in this entire game.
I want to say the Mr. Zaz from Asylum is very similar.
Yeah. Also kind of similar is the final one against Bane, where Bane is all hulked up, and it takes place in this prison block. So you're kind of on the run in that fight, but also you can't attack him head on. You can throw glue grenades to kind of slow him down. You can pop out of vents to do damage. You can, I think what you do is you can throw a smoke grenade and then jump on his back and kind of steer him into these electrified cell doors.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Titan fights in Asylum.
But what's cool about that is you can't use the same trick too many times in that fight.
He's too good. He's too smart, Batman, for your tricks.
He's too smart. And so if you hit him once or twice by popping out of a floor grate and hitting him, then he'll just go around the room smashing all the floor grates, and you can't use them. And he'll yell no more grates, no more hiding, stuff like that. It's really
it's
good.
cool. It's the little touches like that make it to where you just can't abuse them using the same move over and over and over again. You have to be Batman and vary up your attack. So it's super cool.
And that is like, for all intents and purposes, the final boss, because the final boss fight, you have like this showdown with Joker in like this cathedral inside, I think it's the police station. And Joker's just in there, and you think like he's going to have some kind of trick for you, because Joker always has a trick ready, but he doesn't really. It feels less like a climactic showdown from Joker's perspective, and it feels more like, okay, I think I've got you figured out. I think I can like break you in a certain way. I'll get captured, I'll go to prison, but I think I figured you out, Batman. And like, it's the culmination of that storyline where earlier in the game, Batman had a chance to let Joker fall off the side of a building, but he saved his life, even though he had already blown up a building. And like, Joker spends some time being like, why did you save me? Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you the way you are? And things like that. And I think like the culmination of that is this final boss fight where you go into the cathedral, Joker's there, you're expecting a trick, but there is no trick. It's just a fist fight. And of course, Joker can't, he can't fight Batman. So Batman just beats the fuck out of him.
It's kind of amazing in a way, because it's Joker is all of us. He's like, if you kill me, I won't be able to keep killing people, right? Yeah. If I'm dead, and Batman's like, no, I won't kill Joker. Mm-hmm. Someone else will just replace you. And he's like, I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. He's like, Joker's kind of an outlier of a person. There's probably not a whole lot of people just like Joker out there. Gotham's full of weirdos, but Joker is the weirdest of the weirdos.
That's one of the really cool things is the Red Hood section, where you get to see the monstrous Batman, and like, he's probably lying to Harley when he's telling her this, but it's very cool.
Yeah. So, this game also introduces, I don't think I've ever seen Harley Quinn as not Harley Quinn. She's just a therapist in this game, doing psych evaluations, and that's who she is in this game. And at the end of the game, that Joker's kind of gotten to her, but she's not Harley Quinn yet, even at the end of this game. So, again, seeing those origins is still a lot of fun. Yeah, see, one for each of us. We each get one. But yeah, that last boss fight against Joker, because one of the combat things that you do in this game is armored enemies, you have to do this kind of stunning cape swing attack. And then you have this button mash beatdown mechanic where, Batman does Dragon Ball Z punches like 60 punches per second.
Comic!
Going after the villains. And in this boss fight with Joker, you do like 4 of those. And it's like really brutal where Joker's not fighting back. He's just taking the punishment. And, it's like we did the Star Wars episode together. So it's like let the hate flow through you type of thing that Joker's doing.
Yes, Batman, let the hate flow through you.
Exactly. And Joker's kind of like, he's figured out Batman before Batman has figured out Batman. He sees like, you like doing this. You like hurting people. You like all of the things that come with this. So I know you're enjoying just like, punching Joker in the face repeatedly at the end here. Like, Joker's superpower is that Joker can get punched in the face 600 times.
Yeah, he just break every bone in his face, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good. We can keep going." It's so good, and like my favorite thing is when it kind of clicks for Joker that he understands like Batman is my everything. He made me what I am. And like, he has that moment, and he's talking about Batman when he's talking to Harley, but she thinks, because he's like, I met someone who defines me, or I can't remember exactly what he says, but she thinks he's talking about her, and that's when you're like, oh no, the hook's into her, she's doomed. Yep. But it's so cool because he's talking about Batman, he's not talking about Harley, but it's one of those like, oh, that's really well done. It's good writing.
Yeah, it is good, and Batman's an interesting character, and I guess you get into this with a lot of superhero stories, but they did a really good job of fleshing out that feeling out period again between Batman and Joker. Also between Commissioner Gordon and Batman and, Batman.
And Oracle.
Yeah, and Oracle. This is the beginnings, not origins, the beginnings of Batman working with Barbara in this game before she becomes Oracle. And Batman also learning to trust Alfred a little bit more as a partner and not just like a tool, we'll say. So there's a lot of growth between relationships and things throughout this game, which is what it set out to do.
Yeah, and it's so funny because this game came out way before the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, but it feels like his relationship with Alfred is very similar to the relationship that Batman and Alfred have in that movie, where he's kind of like antagonistic towards Alfred a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I don't need your help. Like, I will call you if I need help type of deal.
So that it's kind of cool to see that. And again, it would fit. It makes sense because the Robert Pattinson Batman is a much younger, newer into his career, just like this one is. So he probably would have that relationship with Alfred at this point, as opposed to knowing that he can depend on him. And Alfred hasn't had that moment of, oh no, you need to be the Batman. Gotham needs the Batman. So it's very cool.
Interesting. I didn't see the Batman, the Robert Pattinson one.
It's good.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's probably like half an hour too long. Because like
that's just movies these days, man.
Yeah, it's really good. And then they're like, oh wait, we need like a $30 million like huge thing to happen in the movie. But it really logically could have ended about half an hour before that.
I like how you come on here, you play long video games, I play long video games. I'll play I'm about to start playing Metaphor ReFantazio, and they say that game's going to be 80 hours long. And I'm like, yeah, that's a bit too long, but I can do that. And here I am like, yeah, movies are a half hour too long, and I don't like that.
It's like Persona 5 is just a regular playthrough is like 120 hours.
Yeah. And they're saying that Metaphor is going to be like that too. But anyway, anything else about the experience of playing Origins spoiler stuff that comes to mind, jumps out at you?
No, because I think the biggest spoiler thing is the Joker reveal. It's that Joker reveal and just showing like the twist that it wasn't Black Mask, it was Joker. Other than that, like once you know that, there's not really like spoilers because it is a prequel.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like one of the I guess one of the things that you kind of have in the back of your mind, especially if you played Asylum, is I know where this story ends. Like there's not going to be a surprise at the end of this story. They're going to show Joker going to jail because that's what happens at the beginning of Asylum. But I do think that working within those constraints, the way that they, worked with that Joker reveal and then really focused on just the two of those characters getting to know each other. We ended up at the place we knew it was going, but that wasn't like the point of this. The point was the process of getting there, which I thought was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot else to really say as far as like spoilers go in this podcast here, but they did do a good job of taking us somewhere we knew we were going, but making the ride pretty fun along the way.
Yeah, I think making it a really interesting like character study and dive into why is Batman the way he is, why is Joker the way he is, why is their relationship. I think that's like, even though it's a prequel, that's why this game is so good, because the character development and work is so well done and so strong. So I think like that, and the big reveal is done super well. Like when this game first came out, I didn't know that Black Mask was going to end up being the Joker. And they revealed it. I was like, oh shit, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I started this game knowing that Joker was going to be in it because I knew about the voice acting change and stuff like that. I knew there was a new Joker, but I didn't know how Joker was going to be in it. I thought Joker might be a side character, or Joker might, take command away from Black Mask in some way, which he kind of does in a way, but
yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I thought it was going to be a thing of like, you get through maybe like 6 of the assassins and then Joker is the new one that shows up, and like that's kind of what I thought they would do. Or like you said, he's a more minor character, and we see like, oh, this is gonna lead us into the Batman Joker relationship at the end of the game or something. But it's really well done. They did such a great job at doing it.
For sure. Props to everyone who worked on all of that stuff. This is a really fun game, and as far as the superhero story goes in a game, I think that this is a pretty damn good one. Even within the Arkham series, this is one of the more enjoyable stories, at least that I remember. So been a good time going through the game with you, man. This has been a fun podcast. So thank you for taking the time and doing dad duty while doing it.
Thank you for your patience, and dear listeners, I'm sorry. But of course, like every parent, I'm like, oh, he's pretty good and pretty chill. And the whole time he's just like, I'm going to blow raspberries and go crazy, because that's the thing that I could do.
Yeah, it's no problem. And, so many of my podcasts have my dog going fucking nuts in the background too. So it happens.
Well, he's a very musical oriented child, so if he can play, he has like so many toys that make music, or he can play on drums or whatever, but of course, like the things that would, this will keep him quiet for hours, we can't do, because it's even worse than raspberries.
It's good. Him going nuts with a drum set in the background.
Oh yeah. He would stand at his DJ table for like 2 hours just playing the piano and like scratching a record, but again, it's so loud. So.
Well, in any case, it's been a good time. I always appreciate when I can have you on the show here. So again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite times is to come on and do this with you and talk about games. And I can't wait to come back again.
Of course, we'll definitely have you back, and we'll start thinking about what the next one will be. But in the meantime, I will remind people that you can check down in the show notes for all the other places where you can find stuff that Mick is doing, such as the voice acting roles, the Twitch streaming, adventuring, charity work, and all of those things. You can look down in the show notes again to find those. And to everyone still listening, thank you very much. As always, you are my hero. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.